Dear Michaela, and dear friends, I'm so pleased that you invited me to share in this your bat mitzvah service, and I'm very grateful that Nana and I could be here with your parents, your sister Lena, and Uncle Jeremy, sharing our joy and pride in you today. I know your grandmother Carol and Art feel the same gratitude on being here. And Carol cherishes the blessed memory of your grandfather David, as do all the family at this momentous occasion. We, your grandparents, also think of our own parents, as your father mentioned in his wonderful sermon last evening. Your mother and father's grandparents, who will always be with us in loving memory and would be so very, very proud of you. Our personal memories of your childhood link together all of us who love you. Michaela, one of my first recollections of you before you had learned to walk was you're trying to move across a playground somewhere in Chappaqua to where Nana and I sat. You stood up, took a step, fell down, got up, took another step, fell down. Now she'll crawl the rest of the way, someone said. I think it was your mother. But no, it was up and down more times, but you got to us upright, smiling. And I recall you when, as a little girl, often walking with you on Lexington Avenue to our apartment, that when we reached 72nd Street, you let go of my hand and ran so fast to the apartment house a block away, beating me every time, laughing in victory. That became the routine. Then, of course, years later, came gymnastics, when you performed with such determination all kinds of daring physical feats, and later volleyball, all with enthusiasm. Now, enthusiasm became your way with just about everything. Going to camp, being with friends, enjoying parties, doing puzzles, and as your dad reminded me, consuming chocolate, pasta, and Rice Krispies, all with enthusiasm. You are, Michaela, the very essence of enthusiasm. It's your intrinsic nature. The Hebrew word for enthusiasm is hit lahavut. Its root means flame. It implies zeal, fervor, passion, commitment, even courage. It's not surprising that the enthusiasm that you bring to this bat mitzvah excited and inspired all of us. You modestly stated, I'm not one of the singers in my family. Well, I'm not so sure anybody here would agree with that assessment after today. You conducted the service with great dignity, beauty, and meaning, especially with your powerful message, one of serious significance, particularly for our time and your generation. You taught us the importance of holiness in our lives. You brought the message of this day with that same enthusiasm, flame of energy and conviction that is so much a part of who you are. There was urgency, spirit, and strength in your voice. Your bat mitzvah, however, is not an isolated event. It takes place in the context of our world today, and of your life, and of our lives. You and your friends, as is true of Lena certainly and her contemporaries, face the challenges of the pandemic that devastated our lives in so many ways. Your schooling was interrupted off and on, remote, then in class, then back home. You lived with COVID's uncertainty and still live with its shadow, as we all do. So many people became ill, as you did. You missed your friends. You experienced loneliness. Isolation was painful. But you never lost your enthusiasm or gave up on things you cared about, learning, loving, always anticipating the next opportunity that lay ahead. You deserve our admiration for the way you adjusted to those difficult times, as, by the way, do all your friends. But the significance of this service also becomes clear with an awareness of the crises that are clearly getting worse, that young people, we used to believe, shouldn't even have to think about or fear. You live in a world and in a country where violence and hatred darken your perspective of the future. You must wonder what life will be like when you and your friends are adults. You know how much pain and danger for so many have been brought about by racism, by Islamophobia, by anti-Semitism. All kinds of prejudices have led to destructions and killings in churches, synagogues, and mosques. With the increasing number of guns in our country, 400 million plus, more than people actually, children and teachers throughout the land have had to learn how to survive a shooting in their schools. Many Americans simply no longer feel safe. And so every day we worry, as today again we will hear of tragedy. And you're becoming aware of how increasingly authoritarian leaders endanger democracy here and abroad, including Israel, unfortunately. Our polarized nation has created a political war on voting rights fundamental to America, and legislated drastic new restrictions on a family's freedom of reproductive choice. We've lost our trust in what is true. We feel powerless, as you mentioned, as we watch destructive climate changes ravage this planet, your home, and the home of your children and grandchildren. In honor of your bat mitzvah, you wisely called on us to support two groups, one that confronts climate crises with political action, and the second that provides for the special needs of victimized mothers and their children. When I spoke with teenagers in my temple, Bethel in Great Neck, years ago, there were plenty of dark clouds to share and to fear. Civil rights struggles, the Vietnam War, drug abuse, growing materialism, the beginnings of environmental concerns. But these seemed more distant then. Now the threats are in your faces. Yet, in this moral wilderness, Michaela, you told us we should lead holy lives. Just as Moses told the Israelites long ago as they traveled through their wilderness toward a land of promise. When most people think of holiness, they think of something not worldly, taking place on some mountain peak, a religious retreat where a special chosen class of holy personages, detached, withdrawn from the world, are performing rituals on shrines and altars. But as you said, Moses wasn't speaking to a special group of priestly people. God told him to speak to the entire community, people of each age, gender, and status. So too you were telling all of us today, especially your peers, and I'm sure they were listening, not to withdraw from the evils of our world, but to stand up, protest, act for justice. and you shared a wonderful example of Abraham's protesting at the gates of Sodom and Gomorrah. The Bible tells us that when Abraham learned that God was going to destroy these two cities filled with evil people, Abraham challenged God not to do this because the innocent would also be killed. God responded, "Find me 50 innocent in the midst of the cities, and I won't destroy the cities." They couldn't find 50, so Abraham bargained God down to 10 people. But even that small number could not be located. The rabbis explain by reminding us that God demanded the innocent people must be betoch ha'ir, in the midst of the city's life, not sitting on the sidelines in their homes, attending only to their personal interests. They were not innocent unless they were within the city, actively struggling for justice and mercy. But they were not there to be found. Michaela, you read to us from the book of Leviticus, the third of the 5 books of Moses, the very middle one. And at the very center of that middle book is the holiness code, your Torah portion. Its message is the heart of Judaism's ethical teachings. And it couldn't be more appropriate for this day, for this moment in our world. Its teachings, ancient to be sure, are so very relevant now. Here are a few of its commands. Do not defraud or deal deceitfully. Do not stand idle by the blood of another. Do not curse the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind, that is, take advantage of others' weaknesses. You shall have honest weights and measures. Do not wrong the stranger. Leave the corner of your field for the poor. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. These are not vague and idealistic, impossible tasks. They reflect the fundamental compassion and justice which we need to confront the corruption, violence, racism, inequality, and so many of the sources of misery in our time. Thus, your Torah portion says to you and your friends to get going, to act, to speak out, to protest. That is why, dear Michaela, your Torah portion, while it's so important to all of us, is especially fitting and appropriate for you. It reflects your spirit. You embrace life's opportunities so fully. You want to preserve and share with others this precious but threatened world and its many blessings. You are a young woman who never withdraws from life, but engages life with goodness and enthusiasm. It may be asking a lot of you, but you can help lead your contemporaries with the truths and values that you have learned, as you've said, from your wonderful family and your faith. If you believe in yourself, remember the flame of courage that you truly possess. You will not feel powerless, nor think that you must accept immorality and injustice because so many people do. This is a time of new beginnings for you. Let your dreams and ideals lead you as you choose your way. Amen.